Welcome to Forgotten Wisdom with Craig Babcock, and we are featuring Sarah today. This is a podcast that Sarah just has a few questions. We're going to have a conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. So, Sarah, you had a few questions to begin with.
Yeah, I wanted to start this podcast by asking one of the broadest questions out there. But What does it mean, do you think, to live a noble life?
Okay, so
Super broad.
Super broad. Well, living a noble life is first of all, we have to ask that question: what does it mean to be noble?
Yeah.
And what do you think it means to be noble? That's, I guess, how I'd start is.
What does it mean to be noble? I'm thinking living external of yourself, perhaps I don't know.
So,
good one.
Living a noble life is really kind of, it's been called many different things. And you have, living a noble life, and that's kind of our current way of calling it. Sometimes it's been called a moral life, a wise life, all in line with those ideas. It's something that's greater than yourself. So I guess nobility and living a noble life starts with understanding, first and foremost, that there's something greater in the world than you. And that's a hard thing, because in our culture today, all we care about is the idea of, hey, we have this idea that everything good comes from within you. Mm-hmm. And I can figure it out on my own.
Like inner peace.
Or inner peace, whatever.
Fulfillment.
All those are areas that you kind of have. But when you have that idea of something that's inside of you, realistically, that kind of always has a lacking. Because at the end of the day, nothing matters. It actually ends in feudalism. So it's really starting with that, what is greater in your life? Something greater, and then that has to go for something within who you are.
Could something greater be the small things in your life? Maybe I'm living for my family, or I'm living for my beliefs, or what classifies something as greater?
What classifies something as greater?
Yeah, what makes something greater than yourself?
Well, I mean, there's obviously there's something greater. I'll use country to begin with. Okay. So World War II, interesting time in American history. And we kind of all know what kind of happened in World War II, right? Mm-hmm. There's the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Mm-hmm. America entered this war. But in that time, there was this whole idea that we had something to fight for, something greater than us. And this is really that greater cause. So it has to be, family's okay, but at the end of the day, your family's not that great, because they're not a great idea. If that makes sense. You don't sit there and oh, my family, people do. They're my family's amazing, and I will live for them, and I will die for them. And I'm yeah, that's not really the something greater than you are.
Conflict can happen within a family, and then you kind of lose that admiration.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so the whole idea of America. Okay. Think about America. When you think about America, what do you think of?
Well, patriot. I think of patriot people who are we love this country.
Okay. But why do they love the country?
Oh, because it symbolizes freedom, and freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of all the things.
So they have liberties; they can do whatever they want. So is that something greater than them?
Yeah, because it's rights for people, humanity.
Exactly. So that it starts with something greater than yourself. Obviously, religion can be there, and a Christian worldview, it is God. Mm-hmm. And that is a greater influence. But realistically, God is the ultimate one, because you can't get greater than that. And once again, it's going to not fail you.
Because it's always perfect.
But in America, living from something greater than you in America, or for the ideas of liberty, the ideas of freedom, and that's really what World War II was. That's why World War II happened, and historically there was that uptick of noble living. You had guys being willing to go to war. You had moms being willing to send their children to war to fight for something that was greater than them. Yeah. So it really starts with noble starts with knowing that there's something greater that's external.
That makes sense.
Well, it's hard. But then the next question has to be, okay, so you have something greater than you have. You said you have external. So you have this whole idea of like, okay, I'm going to live for this. I'm going to submit to this. I'm going to do everything. There's a greater cause that I have.
Right.
The next question is, how and what does that actually look like?
Yeah. Yeah, how do you know? Like how do you know when you're living nobly? Like you could, maybe you're going to church every day, but like after what point you're like, okay, I have a noble life. Like
how do I have a noble life?
Like how do you know? Like where's your backbone? I mean, like, all right, I know that I'm living nobly. Like
so when you
when do you decide that? Like,
when do you decide that you're actually noble?
Right.
Like that kind of whole idea.
Yeah.
Well, I think that first of all, you have to have a basis for it. Mm-hmm. And that's the hard thing is knowing where there's a basis. Mm-hmm. And for me, I look at more of a wisdom-based life, so that wisdom's in every culture. Mm-hmm. So you have like ancient Near East wisdom. You have it in Egypt. You have it in Samaria. You have it in Mesopotamia and Babylon. Mm-hmm. You have biblical wisdom, which is also in ancient Near East. Mm-hmm. So you have biblical wisdom. That's where most people are familiar with wisdom. Mm-hmm. That's like the book of Proverbs, right. Song of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, things like that. So you have this idea that there's biblical wisdom. Then you have wisdom, and you have philosophies that are based off of wisdom, like Stoicism. And do you know what a Stoic is?
I think you should recap.
Okay, so
what does it mean to be a Stoic?
A Stoic is someone that they suppress themselves, realistically. The philosophy, I'll really whittle it down. It's that suppression of yourself or self-denial for something greater than who you are. Mm. It's a really unique philosophy, and most Americans actually are Stoics. We have a Stoic-based society. But even in psychiatry and all those areas, you have all this idea of this wisdom. It's something that's consistent. And that's just in the West. Then you go into the East, you go into even Art of War, Chinese proverbs, even though most Chinese proverbs that people read online are not actually Chinese proverbs, they're just things people made up, but that's okay.
Oh, wow.
It's funny to read them. But all of those have like a central theme to them, and it's really living a moral life. And that's kind of the idea of being noble, is to live a moral life. And it's not a basis that is specific to who you are, like rules. Mm-hmm. So noble life is not rule based.
Okay, so it's not like you're just setting values and just being like, okay, I fit within these.
Well, it is setting values. It's not setting rules. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, so this would be a rule. So like, for you, Sarah, to live a noble life, you need to have long hair, you need to always wear a dress, you need to speak correctly, you need to raise your kids to be absolutely perfect in all situations. And also in that time, you need to follow these specific things. That's not what a noble life is. That's a law. That's a rule-based life.
Mm-hmm. Because it's restrictive, and also it's like almost impossible to fulfill completely.
Right, and that's where most people ask the question. They're always like, how do I live this? It's like, give me 5 rules to live by. Uh-huh. And I'm not attacking anybody that might have rules to live by, because they're actually not rules, they're actually philosophy, but that's okay.
Yeah, but like rules.
So like specific rules, like to be noble, you must have a master's degree. Mm-hmm. That is a rule. That's not true. Right. And first of all, what if you don't have a master's degree?
Right.
Or can you not live that? And what happens when you fail at doing a noble thing? You know, and that's so. Or fell at the rule. So realistically, a noble life and all the proverbs and the wisdom is based in this whole idea of a principle that is kind of vague. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you a principle, for instance.
Okay.
All right. Principle. If you hang out with wicked friends,
I've heard this
it'll end in blood.
Yep.
Okay. So, what is the principle in all of that?
Yeah.
It sounds like a rule, right? You could go to a rule. What's the rule? Don't hang out with wicked people.
Right.
Okay. That's a good principle to live by. Well, then you have like a million other questions. Mm-hmm. What's wicked? Who are the people? What is the definition of hanging out with them?
Right, exactly.
Okay, so you have all these things, but you understand when I said that to you, okay, I'm sure, did you have a picture of who you should not hang out with?
Yeah, like I'm picturing like people who are lying and going behind your back all the time and trying to get people and just, cause harm in the world.
Right. Or just think about this, like if it's somebody that's wicked, it could be wicked if just they are constantly, drinking and driving. They're constantly doing things they're constantly making enemies.
Yeah,
so,
getting in fights.
So you have this principle. Don't hang out with wicked people. Mm-hmm. But then there's attached to it, will end in blood.
Uh-huh.
Okay. That's a fun one.
That's a bold one.
So what does it mean it's going to end in blood?
I'm picturing someone's going to die. But,
all right, now here's the sad thing. Someone will die. There is the answer. It will end in most likely, and this is why it's a principle. It's not all the time, but it's most likely, in the end, somebody will die.
Ooh.
And that's like, let's just say you wanted to hang out with gang members, and you're like, yeah, let's hang out with gang members, and then you're shocked when somebody dies.
You're like, oh.
I kind of always look at it and go, you're really shocked?
Right, you didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a principle base. So that's really why wisdom and like wisdom literature, old wisdom literature.
It's also giving space for people to like grow and kind of make their own choices and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like have you actually interpret what it actually means to
give it kind of something personal to hang on to.
Right, because there's a million other ideas of Proverbs.
Right.
A million of different other things. Like, I'll use a Chinese one. Build your enemy a golden bridge to retreat. Okay, that is a Chinese actual proverb.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so what does that mean?
I'm picturing make it easy for people to leave if they're like seeking out the wrong things.
Okay, so now in your life you've had enemies, right?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. I love how you just lied like through your teeth there. I've never had an enemy in my life. No, you've had enemies, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a moment of conflict that you're gonna come to. Now, no matter what, everybody has that moment of conflict. This isn't family. This is an enemy.
Yeah.
Well, what is the greatest thing what's the most noble thing to have happen with an enemy?
They just leave, or you just leave.
Well, you don't go to war.
You walk away.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's really don't go to war, because if you go to war, what happens?
It drags in other people, and yeah.
Yeah, you have a chance of there's the term of war. You look at like the Hatfields and McCoys. Did you know there?
No.
That's a West Virginian. It's the greatest family rivalry in American history.
Okay.
It was unique. They hate each other. They killed each other.
Wow.
So this is all enemies. That one ended in death.
Because it was family versus family. So
family versus family. So there's a thing. Well, then are they living the principle of build your enemy a golden bridge to retreat? Now,
no, it's
okay.
Don't let him escape.
You're like, I want to. So, but when you have an enemy, you're like, okay, I don't want to go to war with them.
Yeah.
So, realistically, why is that so good not to go to war?
Well, I think if the other people involved in your life, it lets everyone kind of go to peace and just let it go. And well, I think for yourself too, like you're not dragging on a conflict longer than it needs to be dragged on. You can just cut your losses and carry on
immediately, right?
Yeah.
You're like done.
Yeah.
Well, and it prevents you from actually getting hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like emotionally. Well, I don't know. Maybe not always. Like maybe there's some instances where you need to like. Okay. I don't know. I don't know if like emotionally I would feel good walking away from some stuff.
You know. Okay, so like okay.
Like I need closure.
You know what? Well, okay. So
You're right.
Once again, closure is what you say.
Yeah.
So that would be looking at yourself like I need this to be resolved. Mm-hmm. The best thing for me is to resolve this, but the wisdom that I just said, which is Sun Tzu, by the way, said build them a golden bridge to retreat.
And that is the closure. That's all the closure you need.
Is there closure and your enemy comes to your door to fight and you build them a bridge?
You're just like, all right.
For them to leave. How much closure is there for Sarah at that moment?
Well, I guess if they're coming to me, they can leave, I guess. I guess the closure is, okay, there's no more conflict.
Okay, there's no more. Well, you survived. That's the.
Everyone survived. No more conflict.
But so this is why wisdom's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're like, but I want closure. So you immediately have that person in your head, and you're like, I want revenge on them.
Yeah. Closure.
Well, okay, I want that. But all wisdom and what has been said from literally the beginning
mm-hmm.
in this whole genre across cultures, time, and space, language, all of this
mm-hmm.
has this whole idea that you're supposed to. That the wisest thing to do is not go to war,
yeah.
is to build a golden bridge. Now, this is a really cool thing,
mm-hmm.
because building a golden bridge has many aspects to it.
Right.
So first of all, you have an enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, who's building the bridge?
You're building the bridge.
Yeah, and what kind of bridge?
It's golden.
Oh, it's golden.
There's effort. There's a lot of effort. There's care.
There's cost.
Yes, I'm sure.
When you have an enemy, do you want to build them something of gold, or something of value?
Yeah, no. Yeah, that says a lot. You're giving them value and as closure.
So just to do that, you are blessing them. It's a really weird thing.
Like a valuable exit.
You're making it, and it's a golden bridge. Now, what does that do? That also has an implication that you're allowing them, the decency of them being a human, which is a hard thing. Because we don't view our enemies as human. We actually subhuman them.
Yeah.
And we start to have this like ridiculous empathy thought of going, if I was in their shoes, they would understand what I think, which is horrible.
It's hypocritical. Yeah.
Well, it's just selfish.
Yeah.
It's beyond.
I guess you're not putting yourself in the enemy's shoes.
Well, you can't put yourself in the enemy's shoes. It's honoring them as a human. So you say, hey, they're valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the most valuable thing to do? They hate me, I hate them.
Mm-hmm.
This is an enemy. This is not somebody good. We're not friends.
Yeah.
Okay, so they hate me, I hate them. I'm going to build them a golden bridge to retreat.
Mm-hmm.
The golden bridge cost me things, cost me money. It's valuable.
In time.
It costs me realistically, this is what it does. It makes me kind of look like the fool.
Yeah.
It makes me look humble.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it saves your enemy face.
Mm.
It's not humiliating them.
Mm-hmm.
When you can let your enemy have that whole idea where they can leave not looking like the bad guy,
mm-hmm.
and they can leave with honor and respect themselves, that is a huge thing to do for that person. Just that person, that enemy that's there. So this is a principle that happens. Now that applies to every enemy you've ever had. That applies to every enemy I have.
Right.
This is a moral code. Realistically, this is something that we would want to do. That's a noble life. Now, here's the crazy thing about living a noble life. It's not fun.
Yeah, it would take a lot of humility and self-sacrifice and giving.
So why would you do it?
I guess you're the aim you have. I guess the reason why you're doing this whole noble life is it has a value that's greater than the enemies, or greater than your own pride and greater than your own ego, I guess.
Okay, so it's greater than you, right?
Yeah, it's all right, whatever.
The whole beginning of that, when I talked about how to live a noble life, you have to have something that's greater than you.
Yeah.
In order to do that, you have to not be I want revenge because I'm the greatest. Because this is not fun. You have to
I'm living for something external for myself, so my own qualms don't matter.
Yeah. That's exactly how it works. You have that something greater in you. Now, there's a second weird blessing to this.
Okay.
Because the hard thing is okay, so you're just talking about nobility. You just have to live for something greater.
Mm-hmm.
I get, everyone has a drive for it. I truly believe everyone kind of wants to be noble. No one wants to be known as this wicked, evil person.
Right.
But, so what is the actual drive? What's the benefit? I mean, what is that benefit for you to live and desire that life?
I guess it is a little selfish then in some ways, because it's
well, yeah.
You want to be a part of that.
You want to be a part of it, okay. Is there any other benefit that you see?
I mean, socially, you'd probably be better off.
I would actually say if you want to be better off socially, be a fool. And I'm talking about a Flemish fool, and we can get into that if you really want to.
Yeah, I mean.
But socially, living a noble life will not necessarily help you socially. It'll help you for good relationships, and it'll help you for meaningful relationships, but it won't help you. It'll help with your reputation, but it won't help you in the general term of like, I want to be socially popular. You'll have a good reputation, you'll be liked, but you won't be necessarily popular.
Right.
Because no one really wants to be around the noble person.
Yeah.
They're no fun.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it, like, what's the wise thing to do? Well, not go to war and humiliate, Jack who made me mad.
Yeah.
Instead, I'm going to make Jack look good. The whole group is mad. And they look at you and go, it's the high road, but, it would have been more fun to humiliate him and go to war.
Let's go fight Jack.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say that living a mobile life is like socially good. Or it's socially good, but it's not socially beneficial necessarily.
I see. Yeah. So, yeah, like, what is the point? I guess it's like, you would have to really want to be a part of the thing you're valuing. Like, that's the only way I can picture the benefit. Like, yeah, that's the only benefit.
So why would you want to be a part of it?
It would have to be really great. Like, I don't know.
Well, there's that long-term view.
It's
something that's so being noble. You have something greater than you, and then it's long-term value. Which, do you like long-term value? You like the idea, hate the concept, actually implementing it, like every other human.
Right. We all want it.
Okay, so
it is hard to get.
Long-term value. Let's just go back to the idea of building a golden bridge. You build a golden bridge for your enemy. People think you're ridiculous for doing it. They respect you for doing it, so you saved your reputation. What other long-term benefits are there?
Well, your generations down the line probably don't have to deal with war or conflicts or your own issues that you created.
Okay.
That's one. I don't know. Like, what do you think?
So this is where it gets fun.
Okay.
Okay. So the long-term benefit you won't see. You will not see. You'll have a good reputation, but it will not personally affect you. So go back to this one. So you build the golden bridge. There's another wisdom saying along this whole line, okay? And this one says that bless your enemy, and it's as heaping hot coals on their head.
Wow.
Okay. It's pretty intense, right?
It's intense.
You're like, wait, hold on. Now break that one down. Think about this benefit. Now, and I say this as a benefit.
Like intense blessings?
So, like, you have an enemy, and you bless them.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same concept of building that golden bridge for a tree.
Yeah.
Because what is it? It's blessing them. It's giving them that ability to leave, and you're blessed. You're doing it. Building the golden bridge is not them building the golden bridge.
No, you're
doing it. Realistically, the whole idea behind that is they can take the bridge with them. You're literally like blessing them as they leave.
Wow.
So with that, this other saying when it says bless them. Well, how do you bless your enemy?
Yeah.
You do great things for them, right? Could you imagine now doing that? I have enemy, and I am going to, instead of attack you, I'm going to bless you.
Yeah, that's a hard one to wrap my head around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this saying, it's Jesus, by the way.
Okay.
He said this. The reason this is so impressive is because he actually gave us the reason why we do it. Because you would think with Jesus, right? This is what most people think. Jesus says, bless your enemies. Why? Because he's Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the saying. The saying is bless your enemies. It's as heaping hot coals on their head. So he gave you something with the benefit attached. So what is the benefit attached?
Well,
when you bless your enemy?
I guess you're also hurting them.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, think about that one. Okay, so would you...
They would feel guilt, I'm sure, in like some ways. Like, probably would feel bad a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
So they'd feel bad.
maybe other people around might be like, wait a minute, like, get on your side, hopefully.
Have you ever made an enemy and they really treated you genuinely well?
No, I have not.
It's because this concept's not really.
I feel like I would get over it if someone like did something really badly, then made an effort to.
Not just make an effort. I mean, like bless you.
Like genuinely made an effort to really, like show that they cared and saw me as an individual. I'd probably get over it a little bit faster.
Okay, so you think you'd get over it? I see.
Maybe.
I look at this noble life. Remember, they're still your enemy.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny because Jesus in this statement, in this one statement, didn't say you're going to become friends. You're not going to be enemies anymore. He never took the enemy away.
No.
All he said is it's this heaping. It's literally if you build that golden bridge.
Yeah.
Well, one, it's a golden bridge. You're saving face. They're not going to war. You're blessing them. In those three things, what you're doing is you basically humiliated them greater than you could ever imagine.
Wow.
Okay, it is crazy when you actually think of wisdom. Now, does Sarah ever get to know the impact that had on somebody?
No, and I guess not in my lifetime. I'll never really know.
So it's...
Because I probably would never talk to my enemy again.
Right.
They'd be gone. I wouldn't know.
No enemy's going to walk up to you and there's not the closure of going, when you blessed me, it killed me inside.
And no one would want to admit that either.
Exactly, but it works. Wow. I can actually say that I've tried this.
Wow.
For fun.
Just to see what happens.
I had a guy, and this is... him and I did not get along. We worked together, and we were at odds in pretty much every area.
Yikes.
Okay, so what I decided to do, I was like, okay, I hate him. Okay. I shouldn't admit how much but I legitimately just despised him.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, and it was friction everywhere. There was enemies. I felt like I was right. He felt like he was right. I'm not going to say who was right. It was probably me. No, I'm just joking. It's probably him.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I can't stand this. He's a legit enemy in my life. So what am I going to do?
Well,
I decided to bless him. Now, how did I bless him? First of all, number one, I bought him lunch.
Wow. Okay.
It's a stupid blessing. He said, hey, here's some lunch, and just gave it to him and walked away. That's all I did.
Wow.
I didn't sit down and say, let's have a peace offering, let's hash this out. No, I dropped food at his desk and said, hey, I got this for you. Didn't say I got it for the rest, just bam. First of all, that's weird.
That is really weird.
Second thing.
Did you poison this?
Second thing is I recommended him for a promotion.
Wow.
Okay, I hated this guy.
Wow.
And I recommended him for a promotion. Now, he could do the job. I wasn't just recommending him because he was bad at his job. He could do the job. And I was like, okay, I'm going to really bless him. And I can tell you, just watching the squirm was fantastic.
Like he was like uncomfortable.
Absolutely. What the heck?
Well, did you promote him or like recommend him in front of the guy?
Well, my name was on his recommendation.
Oh wow! So he was like, wait a minute, like I didn't like this guy. And then he's toiling with himself.
How in the world does this guy happen? Now I'll tell you, the cool thing is we never became friends.
Right.
We stopped being enemies though, or at least we stopped going to war against each other. We stopped fighting with each other. We stopped even disagreements. There was a mutual respect that happened there. Blessing your enemies is like dumping hot coals on their head.
Got it.
So that's part of like the noble living. That's a reason for noble living. Which sounds really stupid of like there's actual benefits for you when you live a noble life.
Yeah.
Now the next greatest benefit is you actually can have a moral value that will guide you in all of life.
So how do you like come up with those values? Like are you seeking them out from like people you admire or like great teachers? Like how do you find the values that you like?
Well, how would you think you would find them?
For me, I'd probably look to people I admire and be like, okay, how are these people living?
Okay.
And probably like adopt the things that I'm like, okay, this is working for them. Well,
So like a mentorship model.
Yeah. Or like from good stories, or like what are the values of history? Like what works? Like what brings the most like peace and fulfillment in a person's life?
Okay, and how are you gonna find that? Is that all mentorship look for you?
Probably mentorship, and then like reading.
Okay.
Yeah, probably.
So it's hard to, because you have to define, first of all, what kind of morals you want.
Right.
And realistically, true morals are consistent across cultures and time.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that is not new, even though we don't want to admit it.
Like the morals of human behavior.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we just talked about everything from the Bible to Chinese proverbs. Mm-hmm. I can throw in ancient Near East proverbs. I can throw, you throw in new proverbs and new wisdom writing. Mm-hmm. But they're all very consistent with moral living, right, or a noble life.
Right.
Living something beyond you.
Right.
So mentorship is a really good way to find it. Mm-hmm. And honestly, that's how most people find
right
how to live a noble life, is through mentorship.
And I think about like kids with their parents too. Like I think you grow up learning so many values just from watching your parents. But right, if you don't have like good parents necessarily, or parents that like I didn't agree with the values that they demonstrated, that you'd have to find it in other people.
Right. And that's where it gets hard, because if there's an underlying worldview that has to be seen when you live in a moral life. Mm-hmm. And your underlying worldview has to be, what is being stated is greater than me. Mm-hmm. And the reason I follow what's being stated, or a reason I implement the principles, is because something greater, I'm living for something greater. Mm-hmm. All right, so we have both those. The problem is that oftentimes kids, when they look at their parents, mm-hmm, realize that their parents kind of are horrible people. Yeah. And most women specifically hate this statement. If you really want to make a woman mad in marriage, okay, this is what you do. It's simple. Okay. All you say to them is, "You sound like your mother."
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
So we look at, why is that like a visceral reaction? Why do we have that, like...
Because it's obviously being said in like a negative way, so you just, at least for me, it wasn't even directed at me, and I felt that. Like I think about like, because it has like a connotation of being negative, and then I think of all the things that my mom's ever said or done, and I'm like, oh, that is so awful. I don't like that, but I already recognize it in myself. Right. So then it hits a trigger point where I'm like, oh shoot, like that is a trait that I have that I don't like. Right. But I see it in my mom.
And the funniest thing is, I would guarantee that not necessarily your family, but probably, because humans are not that different, right, at all, is that even you go back generation to generation to generation, like if I was to say to this lady, "You sound like your mother," she has a visceral reaction. I say that to her mother, "You sound like your mother," she has a visceral reaction. Yep. It goes on. And mm-hmm, and why is that such a big deal? And usually it's not because they're related to them. Because honestly, if you say that, and I was to say to you, do you have morals and things you learn from your mom that you absolutely respect and you actually mm-hmm, hold true? Because mm-hmm, you have those things absolutely in you. Yeah. So, but why is that the hard part? The hard part is because when you have mentors, what it creates is, if it's not based on something that is true and sound, you just see the hypocrite in it. Mm-hmm. Or you just see the fakeness of it. Mm-hmm. So we tend to be like, oh, find a good mentor. Yeah. I actually don't know if that's a way to find and live a noble life. Mm. We can use them as examples. Right. But I don't know if that's the greatest way.
Why? Because people are inconsistent and imperfect?
Absolutely, yes. Okay. And that also boils down the worldview to what that person had, uh-huh, is the greater good. Right. Is that higher purpose? Is that thing that I'm actually is outside of me? Is that person? And that's always that issue. And a lot of people also fall into the trap of thinking, oh, if I could just talk to so-and-so, the world would be better. No, you suck just as much as they do.
Right.
And so following that, you can use them as examples, but I actually don't think that's a way to find it. I truly believe the only way you can find it is through reading wisdom literature. And as dumb as that sounds.
Because you don't know the author, you don't know their life, and it's just content for the sake of content.
Right, because what is wisdom literature at its core?
It's a like almost repetition of values throughout history. It's kind of how I'm seeing it.
It's observable moral values.
It's not an author's bibliography.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone can look, because there's qualities that you're like, man, that's a noble quality.
Right.
And we know this. Like,
right.
Like, think about this. And you know, do you know anything about the royal family right now?
I know very little.
Okay. So this will probably go over your head, but
okay.
it'll make sense to anybody that knows anything.
Okay.
So in the royal family, there's two princes. There's Prince William.
Yep. Okay.
And Prince Henry.
Yep.
Harry.
Yeah,
Harry. Not Henry. Don't worry. Got that. So William married Kate.
Yep.
Harry married Meghan.
Yep.
Okay. People love Kate. Meghan, not so much.
Meghan had a lot of controversy, for sure.
Okay. Which one lives a moral life? Which one would you say is more noble? Now, they are nobles. So by definition, both of them are nobles, even though, you know, one left the family, I don't care. They are both by definition nobles, or were.
Oh, I don't know too much about them, so I feel weird making a judgment on that.
Well, I'll just tell you, when you look at this, and if you go back, most people, especially people that follow the royal families, look at Kate as extremely noble.
Because she followed the tradition of the family?
She follows, not necessarily tradition, she's obviously attempting to live a greater value. The controversy surrounding Meghan, a lot of that is because it bucks what is observable historical wisdom.
Like what? I'm curious.
Not giving respect and honor to people who say respect, they deserve respect and honor. That one's simple. That is a moral. When you meet somebody, should you treat them with respect and honor?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because everyone is human and deserves respect. I feel like at the root we're all just people.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have that whole idea of like, okay, that is a noble trait. Now, I'm gonna just tell you, conventional wisdom is against the noble trait of treating people with dignity and honor.
Because it's like prove that you're valuable.
Yeah.
Prove that you deserve
honor. Have you
honor.
ever heard like this one? You have to earn my respect.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Do you think it's right?
I think it's hard because there isn't a clear definition of when have I earned it? When when do I get respect? When do I earn your respect? It's not defined. It's not oh, you'll earn my respect when you do this. It's you haven't earned my respect. And so it's you could do all these things that demonstrate to the best of your ability that you're a valuable person, that you deserve to be trusted, but in the eyes of that individual, they may look at you and be like, yeah, you still don't deserve my respect, even though this other person may be working so hard
right
to be
Have you ever met somebody that just respected you as the default? They met you and respected you.
I think it's easier to respect them back, and then also because when people come to me and just default respect me, it's I want to show up for that.
Why?
It's for me, I want to show that I deserve this respect that you've given me. So it's kind of I respect you enough to bring myself up to that level you're giving me. It's kind of the way I'm seeing it.
I actually wholeheartedly agree. But, conventional wisdom is you have to earn my respect. And that right there, you actually nailed everything right on the head. You cannot earn somebody's respect.
Yeah.
It's something that is given right away. You give respect, you never earn respect. So a noble life or somebody that's living in a noble life, and this is seen, this is one of the easiest things I've seen. This is why there's that visceral reaction to between Kate and Megan. This is why there's that visceral reaction, is because when you see that noble life, that grace, if you will, that realistically is speaking of, she is respecting everyone she's meeting. She's showing great respect for the queen before she died. She's showing great respect for her husband. She's showing great respect for her kids. She's showing great respect for the people of England. She's showing great respect for the people in New Zealand and Canada who are still, part of the English Empire, if you will. She's showing that respect, and she's just giving it to them. Why? Because she's going to honor them. The other thing is, you have to earn my respect, and this is the very American way. So is you earn my respect, and I earn your respect. And don't you know who I am? Well, I don't care who you are. I'm going to treat you the same, and I'm going to treat you with respect and honor the same as I'm going to treat anybody with respect and honor. And that's that whole noble idea behind noble living, and that's why it's so valuable.
That makes sense. Yeah, because it's hard to respect someone who's not treating others well.
Right.
Without reason. Like, without reason at all. It's just straight up just like, you're beneath me. It's like, are they? Are we? Like,
well, okay. Yeah. So why, but then that brings the question of, why do we treat people with respect?
I think it's because it comes from a place of like inner humility. Because it's, you have to treat people with respect when you realize that you're not perfect and neither is anyone else.
Okay.
Because no one is perfect. We're all humans.
There's a statement for a reason, right?
You're right.
Okay.
So it's like, by default, we're all just in the same boat. Is kind of how I'm seeing it.
Just by default, we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
All right. See, I would say that actually is a struggle.
Yeah.
Because how good of a person are you, Sarah?
I would say I'm a good person.
Okay, you want to think you're a good person,
I want to think
right?
I'm a good person.
But if I was to actually show you all your failures, would you act, and which you know, okay, we know intrinsically.
Yeah.
Every one of us knows something inside of us that says, I'm not that good.
Not perfect.
Okay, and we will justify it by saying, I'm not perfect. Okay, but and this is a weird segue, because it's that whole idea of, okay, so
I'm a flawed human being.
I'm very flawed. You're very flawed. I'm very flawed.
I have a hard time seeing that, though, in a way that's like not self-hatred.
Well, that's the interesting thing. That's the problem, and that's why we earn respect, and that's why we want to earn respect, because we have that idea of going, okay, how do I not make this self-hatred? Because knowing your flaws, is that really self-hatred?
No, it could just be like self-recognition.
Okay, self-recognition.
Yeah.
But it requires that element, because if you just know your flaws, you're like, you'll end up hating yourself. That's why, we see the uptick in depression, anxiety, and everything. It's really, we see our flaws, we see our hatred, we see everything wrong. Now, here's where it really gets there. Why would we respect somebody else if we know that they are just human like us, and that they are as flawed as you are? It's hard to actually respect that person.
It's hard to justify it if you're like wording it that way. But in the same boat, it's like, I would want to be respected, so I will respect you back.
Okay, but you're just as flawed.
Right, but no one wants to be treated like crap.
Okay, no one wants. Okay, that's fine. But we know that this is part of how humans treat each other. And I'm gonna just say, the simple thing of, you have to earn my respect, tells me that you don't value who a human is, because it's because of how flawed they are. And the issue is that when this comes, the valuing of human, we have to look at it in this realm. And that is, you're valuable, not because I say you're valuable, but you're valuable because something greater says you're valuable.
Something that greater that I admire and I look up to.
Right, and and the problem with that is this is where worldviews fail. This I just brought you to the cliff.
Yeah.
Of where worldviews fail, especially in noble living.
Yeah. Yeah, because I could see if you're saying that, you know, my higher reason for being is in my striving for nobility is already within myself, and I'm just trying to be the best person I can. But if when you know you're flawed, you can't look at someone else and be like, why should I treat you well? Like,
right.
Yeah, I get that. Because it's like there's nothing holding them to a standard that says, no, this person's got value.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out why that other person has value, and why you are valuable. And so just in this respect thing, just look at just this respect thing. You have to figure out for yourself, you have to ask and answer this question. Why are humans valuable?
I still ask myself.
Okay.
I'm wrestling with this one.
So, I mean, like, what is, I hear it all the time. You can go onto any social media and you'll have hundreds of people saying, you are valuable, you are valuable, you are valuable.
What makes us valuable?
And then the question has to get, well, why?
Yeah.
I know no one wants to ask that question.
Yeah.
But it's the uncomfortable question that needs to be asked. Why on earth, why would Sarah be valuable?
Right, yeah.
Why aren't you just another number? Why aren't you any of this stuff? This is one of the hardest questions that we have to answer. This is where our worldview, in and of itself, every worldview, I don't care what worldview you have, and everyone has a worldview.
Yeah.
This is the question that everyone avoids, because this is the question to say if your worldview stands or fails.
Yeah.
So, why do you think people, like if I was to go out on the street, what are common answers that people give of why are humans valuable?
I'm like trying to put myself in that perspective. They might be like, oh, because we can think.
Okay.
We're put here to learn.
We're put here to learn.
We're here for a reason. I don't know. And I hear so many different theories, so I don't know. It's hard to like come to one thing that it's like, this is why humans are valuable because of this. Because it's these like people are like, oh, we're valuable because everyone fills in the blank with their own kind of reasoning.
But does it actually hold up?
No.
It's like, okay, we're valuable because we can think.
Yeah. We're special. We're
special, except for there's
special little creatures.
there's billions of us.
Yeah.
How special are we? And there's a lot of sand. Do you feel like a grain of sand is pretty valuable? Not really.
Yeah.
Because so there's lots of us. So there's lots of us that can think. That's a issue. I mean, there's even people that legitimately think there's too many humans alive.
I've heard that one.
Okay, so well, that's kind of messed up. So you're saying that the people that shouldn't be here, there's too many of us, so some of us should die? Like, you see where but at the same time they'll sit there and go, humans are valuable.
Be like,
well, no, your worldview is not saying that they're valuable.
Yeah.
So does thinking make you valuable?
I don't know. I when I think of value, I think of like the benefits of the planet or like benefits of a higher good, and honestly
well, the planet's an interesting one.
The planet's
so humans are valuable as long as they're helping out the planet
or helping out, like playing a role, I guess.
Okay, and well, I think that the planet's a good one because that's the whole like global warming's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right. We hear about climate change all the time.
Right. Or and like resources being stripped.
And there's this idea that us as humans should take care of the earth, right?
Just not be like a catalyst of destruction for it. Just
catalyst for destruction.
Yeah, just be a smoke in the wheel.
And just so you know, by the way, in my own worldview, of wisdom-based worldview and higher value, higher being worldview, that taking care of the earth is part of wisdom literature. So it is actually wise. So there is truth to climate change. There's truth. But let's just look at that. So a human's value is to take care of the earth. Is that true?
I mean, what makes that true? Because that's our own, like, humans deciding that for themselves.
So now you're asking, okay, so you just proved to yourself that that cannot be what makes us valuable, because what makes that valuable?
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Like, this is where it gets really hard. Why do humans have value then?
Yikes.
Like,
yeah.
you know, there's ideas, and there's ideas that we have the word, we can speak. You know, usually that's called the logos, and that's the idea that we're valuable because we can speak. And I somewhat agree with that standpoint. Kind of. There's some extreme flaws in the philosophy, but does that make us valuable? That we can speak? Like, we're the only creatures that can. We speak in hundreds of different languages.
Arguably.
We don't technically know if dogs can communicate with
each other. Or like whales, like.
Yeah, we don't know.
Or birds.
Okay, but is it the same as words? To have the.
All right, but we can't make like.
Logos is the consciousness, the consciousness entering and equaling the spoken word.
Yeah, but then it's like spoken word is just sound. Like, we don't know if whales are.
So you're like, yeah, maybe not. That's what value. So
yeah.
What is the value? Why are you valuable?
I don't think it's because we speak.
Okay, you don't think it's because we speak.
I really don't.
You can sit there and go, okay, what are all these reasons? I mean, and that's really kind of the question is, why are we valuable? Now, I'll tell you, as we look at value, if I want to respect people, I have to value them. I have to say that intrinsically, because you are a human, I value you.
Yeah.
So now, here's where it gets really hard.
It's like people just want to be told, oh, we have to value something because someone says to.
Well, because that's the best answer we have.
Yeah.
And realistically, that is the actual best answer we have. The best answer is that you're valuable because of the thing that's greater outside of you says you're valuable.
So you have to.
Yes.
Listen.
Now, this is like in Christianity, this is what makes Christianity so interesting when it comes to the respect issue. And
because God says humans have value.
Because God says humans have value.
And period.
The end.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so you can't like if you believe in God and God says He's greater than you, and He says Sarah has value. Who are you
to disagree? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the biggest reasons that we struggle with value is because
do other religions have that?
Some. So Eastern religions generally do not. So Eastern religions are destiny-based religions, and destiny-based religions don't value you because your destiny is already determined. And so they value the destiny, not the person. It's really jacked up. Any destiny-based religion is, at its core, really messed up. It basically makes you just a mindless Borg if you boil it down to the end.
You have no free will.
You have nothing. There's no point to even make yourself better in destiny-based, because it's going to happen no matter what. If you're going to become better, it's just going to happen, which is illogical.
And it takes away people's choice.
Right. It also takes away their value.
Right.
And so, Judaism, obviously Christianity and Judaism are the same. Not the same. They have the same basis, the Abrahamic religions. Islam has some value when it comes to humans. One, because it is an Abrahamic religion. Are they as bold as Judaism and Christianity, and especially as bold as Christianity? Christianity is extremely bold in this regard, that humans have value because God says they have value. So you have those. So your Western religions are there. Philosophy-wise, philosophers struggle with this question. And, you've probably heard of the trolley problem, which everyone hears about the trolley problem. Trolley problem is basically there's two tracks. Somebody you love's on one track, and 10 people are on the other track.
Yeah.
You have an uncontrollable trolley. There's a lever to choose what track you're going to go on.
Yeah.
Which one do you choose? Okay, so that question is actually, that's not a question of the greater good. It's actually a question of, do humans have value? That's really the question. And so that value of human life is really there. And we see that in debates now. We see that's why, everyone's politically heated about when does human life begin, all those things, because it's that question of when do people have value? And I can say, from my worldview, every single person has value. Which is, it's a bold statement, because I can on one hand say every single person has value, and every single person is inherently flawed.
Yeah, that's 2 for 1. Yeah.
And it's not a contradictory statement to me in any regards. Those do not contradict. So you have, everyone has value, everyone's flawed. And I can respect that, but just because you're flawed doesn't mean that your value is gone. And that's a hard concept to have. And, getting back to moral or noble living, boiling it down to that idea is extremely important for all of us.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Any other ideas, questions about?
Well, to wrap it all up, right. What are 3 things to take out of that? 3 things to go by if you want to live a noble life. I'm guessing one. Well, based on what you're saying.
I want you to answer that question.
Okay. So, to live a noble life, based on what I'm getting out of this, you need to find something external of yourself that is more valuable and is inherently greater that you can look towards and aim towards. Oh man. Then I'm guessing the other one is you have to find a reason for humans to have value.
Okay.
Yeah, and then find your values, I guess, and then determine those values based on how are you going to be in line with the thing that you're striving towards, the thing greater than yourself.
Right.
Is that in mentorship? You have to you have to find that, I guess. This is a lot to take in, but.
So when I said that, when you boil it down to 3, I would say I cannot. And the reason being is because that actually goes against moral living philosophy. For me.
Why is that?
Okay, so I can say this is the 3 things I took away. But I didn't give you 3 things.
There was so much there, yeah.
But when you're gonna go into the wisdom world, the wisdom literature world, when you're going to go and try to live that noble moral life, it's incredibly specific to you. And that's another really weird thing about noble living. It's very specific to you, and actually very specifically to you at this time. So anybody that listens, all the listeners out there, could listen to this all the way through.
And get
we have to say
different.
Slightly different that applies specifically to someone might be like, I know that what I got out of this is that when we have an enemy, we treat them really good so that I can heap coals on their head.
Golden Bridge.
And humiliate them because they're there. That is what I took out, and that's a thing that I would want them to take out of it. And that's the vaguity of moral living. It doesn't mean that it looks different for everybody.
It's not rule-based.
It's not rule-based. It's all principle-based.
Okay.
And the hard thing is that you have to learn and keep learning and keep learning.
But that's the journey of it.
Yeah, and there's no end. I'm gonna just spoil alert. There's never an end to living or learning about moral living or living uprightly. And because there's no end, it's wearing, tiring, it's hard. But if you have something greater,